That was the greatest basketball game I have ever seen in person in my life, and the loudest I have heard Barclays Center since the peak of the KD, Kyrie, James Harden era when the Nets were playing for an NBA championship. And yet, it is in a game where the Brooklyn Nets lose. We'll break all that down and so much more right here on the Brooklyn Boys Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. As always, I'm your host, Josh Williver. Thursday, January 8th, less than 24 hours removed from the game of the Brooklyn Nets season. And I think anyone who watched that game would agree with me when I say that. Hit like, hit subscribe if you're tuned in with us live right here on the channel. We go live almost every single day, so continue to show your love there. Get questions, comments, thoughts rolling over in the chat. That's the best way to interact, support, and continue to grow the show. Hit like and subscribe. Share this with friends and family. That helps us grow, but get your thoughts, your comments in. We want to hear what you have to say. Oh my goodness, was my reaction. And if you listen to my post-game show yesterday, I said that was the greatest NBA game, basketball game I had ever attended, maybe sporting event, with the exception of the Cam Schlittler masterclass against the Red Sox. That is one of the best sporting events I have ever been in the building for. 104-103 the final score. But where I have to start is Egor Demin, because a star was born in the borough of Brooklyn last night. This guy did not score in the first 3 quarters of the game. In fact, the Nets were hanging in the low 60s for a big portion of the third quarter. This team couldn't score. They didn't have anything going. Michael Porter Jr. looked like he got injured in the first half. He came back, scored a ridiculous 34 points. But the Nets still had nothing going outside of that man, MPJ. The rest of the Nets were shooting 27% from the field at one point. They were just an all-around awful team when you remove Michael Porter Jr. from the equation. Now, why in the world is the fact that we have Michael Porter Jr., or rather the Nets have Michael Porter Jr. out there, and Egor Demin couldn't score. Neither could the rest of the lineup. They were missing free throws. And how in the world they were still in this game, I don't know. Orlando is a good team. Don't let that fool you, okay? They are a very, very good basketball team. And I think just for the Nets to hang in there through 3 quarters, it was sort of a shock to me, to a lot of people in the building. Multiple times did I say in the third and fourth quarters, this game's over. But the Nets stuck in it. MPJ hit a couple huge threes down the stretch, which brings us to the end of the fourth quarter. Egor Demin had not scored. He goes berserk, drops 18 fourth quarter and overtime points after not scoring in the first 3 quarters. He wanted the ball, okay? The clutch factor is absolutely there. That is not something that is coachable by Jordi Fernandez and the staff, who do a lot of great things for this organization. Clutch factor is not coachable. Egor Demin was born with it. And it emerged for the first time in the Nets' first overtime game of the season last night. This was my post on Twitter right after the game. I threw this up. My reaction from the Barclays Center of the Egor Demin three-pointer. I want everybody to watch this and listen to how unbelievably loud it gets in that stadium. Let me pull it up. Here we go. Take a listen.
Nets! Let's go, Nets! Let's go, Nets! Let's... Oh, yes! Give it out! Hit it!
unreal. Absolutely unreal. You hear the crowd pop. You hear the air. It was all up in the air when that ball was in the air. Michael Porter Jr. misses from three after being automatic all night. The Nets kept telling fans of the building to vote this guy into the All-Star game. That was Michael Porter Jr.'s moment. He could not step up to tie this game with 10 seconds left. Day'Ron Sharpe, who had a very, very costly offensive goaltending penalty a couple minutes ago that would have given the Nets the lead, or a couple seconds ago, grabs a massive, massive, massive offensive rebound, swings it out to Demin. There's miscommunication on Orlando's defense. Nobody is on Demin, and he hits the shot of his lifetime. The greatest take Egor Demin had ever had up to that point in his life. But he outdid himself. He outdid himself 5 minutes later, even freaking better. A fadeaway three-pointer off the glass. I could not believe my eyes. I would not have been surprised if I had never watched a game of basketball in my life and you told me Egor Demin was the most clutch athlete to ever hit a sports team, to ever touch a basketball. He could not miss. And the shots he were putting up were insane. They were crazy. He continues to get better and better and better. He continues to climb the NBA rookie ladder. But this right here, he just put the league on notice. He just said to the 7 teams that didn't draft me, who had the opportunity to before Brooklyn, I took that personally. That spectacle of shooting was one that I had never, ever seen before last night. And you can hear the Barclays Center erupt after that shot. Erupt. It was all up in the air. He hit that, and then it got somehow even louder at the end of overtime. Amazing. That was absolutely amazing. But then, with the ball in his court, Paolo Banchero turns around and hits a buzzer-beating three, a dagger into the hearts of Nets fans across the world. Dagger. Tanking, non-tanking fan, want to win every game you play, want to get the best pick possible. I do not care where you are on that stance. You were absolutely rooting for the Nets to pull that one out last night. Every single person who has any affiliation with the Nets was heartbroken when Banchero put that in. And yes, there was shades of the Kevin Durant foot on the line against the Bucks in Game 7 of the playoffs 4 years ago. No need to ask. That was in the back of everybody's mind when they went to review that play for whether his foot was on the line or not, whether it was a 2, whether it was a 3. A killer off the hand of Paolo Banchero. All right, emotions are out of the way. Let's break this thing down. You guys get your questions, comments, thoughts rolling on over in the chat. I just wanted to walk you through what I was feeling at the game because that was a roller coaster of emotions. That was a wild ride. It didn't feel real in the moment. Like, to have a rookie step up and be that clutch, it did not feel real. And I think it was mutual for the other 17,000 fans of the Barclays last night who got treated to the game of the season. An awesome performance. Whether it was the comeback, the heart, the grit this team showed, or whether it was just the amazingness that were Egor Demin's 2 shots. Really, 3. Anybody in that building appreciated what good basketball that was. But man, let's start there. The fact that this Nets team looked not even like an NBA team in the first half. They put up 45 points. They were ridiculously bad. They were laughably bad in that first half. They scored a grand total of 48 first half points. No, excuse me, 43 first half points. Ridiculously bad. And then somehow it got worse. They got outscored by 10 in the third quarter. And after 3 quarters of play, they found themselves trailing 64. They scored 64 points. They scored 64 points through 3 quarters. That does not happen for an NBA team. At least it should. You should not be losing. You should not be scoring 64 points in 3 quarters. That is terrible. That is about 2 minutes, or rather 2 points a minute. So after Brooklyn came out of the gates and looked horrible, to turn it around and play that well in the fourth quarter and overtime too, the Nets played very, very well in overtime. Michael Porter Jr. went silent in the biggest moment of the season, but everybody else stepped up. And that's what I appreciated. You understand that Michael Porter Jr. is not going to be clutch for this team every time he steps out on the court. That is a laughably bad assumption to make. But man, Egor stepped up with the massive shots. We know that. Day'Ron Sharpe, the huge offensive board to bring him to overtime. Noah Clowney with a ginormous, tough 2 buckets in that fourth quarter to help complete the comeback. Nolan Traore, a ridiculous look on a corner 3 where he had his defender leaning, was way off kilter, and still buried a 3. Everybody contributed on this team, and it was a team effort to come back. Because I don't think it should be taken lightly that they scored 40 points over 17 minutes after scoring 60 in 36. This Nets team showed us a new level of what it means to compete. The mantra for this team, excuse me, I thought I had to sneeze at it. The mantra for this team used to be the Brooklyn way. That was the Brooklyn way if I've ever seen it. That was about as good as you could have possibly, or rather as well as you could have possibly imagined that ending to play out. And it felt in the Barclays Center about as hyped as one could imagine it. Again, the loudest I have heard since the big 3 were in the building, since they were making that playoff run against the Bucks. That might be recency bias. Let me know, Nets fans. Are you feeling the same way? But I certainly felt like that was a new tier of craziness at the Clays. That's what I'm calling that. Craziness at the Clays. Let's get into a couple of the stats. Michael Porter Jr., his absurd 34 points. Gets shut down in overtime, but you can't complain about a performance like this. Cashes in on another 8 3-pointers. Man, get that man to the All-Star game in Los Angeles. It shouldn't be a hard decision for anybody. He was ridiculous. 34, got slightly injured in that first quarter. He's listed as probable for tomorrow against the Clippers. Hopefully, you're able to bank on him pulling through. LA has been playing some much improved basketball as of late. Michael Porter Jr., a ridiculous performance. Noah Clowney, the efficiency wasn't there, but he was horrible in that first half. Turned it up a little bit with a couple 2 clutch buckets down the stretch. He was horrible in the first half. Noah Clowney, I think, continues to be one of those guys where he is so off and on to me. There is no consistency with Noah Clowney. He's either dropping 25 and shooting 6 of 10 from 3, or blanking out from distance like he did last night. Going 0 of 5, 4 of 11 from the field, and not fulfilling his role. I feel like there is no in between for Noah Clowney. But he played a big role in that comeback. He had a plus 12 rating. Michael Porter Jr. was on the bench for a portion of that comeback. That is worth being noted. It certainly is. I want you to look at the bottom of the screen, though. Jalen Wilson, Terrence Martin didn't play. I mean, I can't say enough about that. Jordy Fernandez has come around the corner. Clap it up! It is no longer speculation about how he feels about these guys, because it was for a while when it was just a couple of outlying games. Jordy Fernandez has turned a corner. Jalen Wilson, DNP, coach's decision. Terrence Mann, DNP, coach's decision. Tyrese Martin, you guessed it, did not play. It was the coach's decision. We have turned a corner and realized what the hell these guys mean to the basketball team, and that is nothing. At least nothing of substance, at least nothing of value. So if nothing else, take that away. Cement it, baby. Wilson and Martin, we were already leading that way, but throw Mann into the pile, why don't you? And for those of you asking, what does that mean? It means 20 minutes for Nolan Traore, it means 19 for Powell, and 18 for Danny Wolf. There wasn't a net who checked in who didn't play more than 18 minutes. That should show you something. It has always been about earning minutes on this Nets team, but I think to a new level at this point. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow along if you haven't done so yet. Continue to get questions, comments, thoughts in on the chat. All that helps us grow. Twitter went a little bit berserk last night. We can get there if we want to. Yegor's 3 to send the game to overtime. That one actually went pretty big. 10K views, 260 likes. So I want to thank you all for your support recently over there. And you guys have been nothing but the best. So at this point, man, all I can say is thank you. You guys continue to treat me well there, so I cannot say thank you enough. Let's get down. There's still some more meat on the bone to discuss here, and that is the Cam Thomas situation. 24 minutes, 10 points, 3 of 11 from the field. He was on a minutes restriction, according to a couple writers on the Nets beat who confirmed that's what Jordy Fernandez had said. He was on a minutes restriction. Nick Claxton was on a minutes restriction. If you're wondering why he didn't start, why he didn't see much of the game, he was out for a couple of days in a row with personal reasons. So the Nets just wanted to reacclimate him, and I wouldn't call it a punishment, more of a healthy repercussion for making sure that it's all equitable, it all comes out in the wash, that you're not just missing games for personal reasons and coming back immediately. But that's not what Nick Claxton would do. Nick Claxton is a very team-centered guy. So no doubt in my mind, that is not what that is about. But let's get to Cam Thomas. On a minutes restriction and shooting 3 of 11 from the field. Now, that is very interesting because Cam Thomas is a guy who we know is not afraid to shoot the basketball. But how about this coming out earlier today from Ari, a basketball insider for the Consensus NBA, tells us that Brooklyn Nets guard Cam Thomas has changed representation sources. Representation sources tell the Consensus NBA. Thomas has hired Wasserman. His new representation will now move forward in guiding his future with the franchise. Nets Daily confirmed that that is his third agency switch in the last year. His new representation will now move forward in guiding his future with the franchise. That says all I need to know. There are no crumbs left on the detective table for what that means. Cam Thomas is looking to get out of Brooklyn. And at this point, I do not think the no trade clause matters. I think he just wants to leave. I put out a tweet about this. I was at the game. I was paying close attention to what he was doing, not only on the court, but off the court, because a minutes restriction can be tough on guys sometimes. And boy, the body language is not there. It is not. At one point, he threw the ball out of bounds, got called over to the bench to get subbed out, and just began moping and complaining on the sideline and tucking himself away in a corner and not even talking to the rest of the guys on the bench. It is clear and obvious to me that he has no future and doesn't want to have a future with the Brooklyn Nets moving forward. And switching agencies right after going and moping on the bench, which, by the way, he's done all season, whether he's played or he hasn't. Switching representative agencies to guide his future with the franchise? Yeah, that tells me just about all I need to know. Cam Thomas will be up and out of here, I would guess, within the next 2 weeks. Obviously, I'm not an insider. I don't have sources on that. I don't know who's bidding for the guy or even if there's been an offer thrown up on the table. However, it is pretty gosh darn obvious to me that this means he wants out. And he wants out quickly. The body language shows it. This shows it. His future contract is on the line. He's on an expiring qualifying offer. He is not guaranteed any money next year. He needs to turn things around real fast if he wants a future in the NBA. Right now, I'm not sure he has one. So that is a very interesting nugget, I would call it, into what happened last night and connecting that on back to what we talked about. So Cam Thomas switches agencies. Could that mean a trade coming up on the horizon? We shall see. Let's keep it going here. Mini tank update. This is just from since the 1st of December. Obviously, the Nets go on that huge winning streak. They win 8 of 10 from the 1st through the 27th. They look amazing. Since then, though, they've come back down to earth, lost 4 of their last 5 games, stretching 2025 to the new year. And that was their first overtime game of the year, as I mentioned earlier in the stream yesterday against Orlando. And what a game that was. So MPJ is going to be given the award for most points. That's what that tally is over there on the right. Most points for the Nets, highest scorer, and no matter what, Egor Demin will have my heart when it comes to remembering this game last night on January 7th. 104-103. Mini tank update. Trae Young to Washington. Obviously, I'm sure you guys have heard. That plays big implications on the Brooklyn Nets tank. So Washington is going to get out of that race. Currently, they're in the 4th place spot in terms of odds. they're going to slide up out of there immediately. They didn't have to give up much for Trae Young, so they're going to be looking to make a push for the play-in and beyond in the East. So expect them to leave the race. So that kind of slides the Nets down a slot. Right now, they're picking 5 if the season ended today and the draft went exactly as expected. The lottery went exactly as expected. The top 3 teams, though, are kind of untouchable. Nets sitting at 11 wins. I'm looking at it at wins right now because the games played are unevenly distributed, but are ultimately what matter. When you look at it from the wins perspective, the top 8, or rather the top 3, there's 2 8-win teams and a 6-win team, which is Indiana, who have been horrible. So that's kind of a little bit untouchable from the Nets' realm right now. And we'll have to see whether whether they're playing well into the future, whether they take a step back, whether trade pieces make this team worse. But the Nets are still in a position where they are opened up to go in a multitude of directions at the deadline. And now with Washington trading for Trae Young, and they're out of the tank race, it's kind of narrowed down. It has certainly slimmed itself down pretty quickly here, where teams are improving, teams are getting better and getting out of the race, like we've seen LA, like we've seen Milwaukee, like we have seen Atlanta, like we have seen Charlotte. But now it's sort of this race to the bottom that we feel like has a roof at this point where teams aren't really falling below it. It's more of just there's 4 or 5 teams solidified down low. Who's going to nudge it out for those spots? It's not really, here comes a contender out of nowhere to predict, or rather to try and land one of these top picks. It's sort of set in stone, just the question of the order now. But obviously, we've seen the last 2 years that a very unexpected team has ended up winning the NBA draft lottery. All right, let's get into the comments. Questions, thoughts, keep those rolling if you haven't done so yet. Leaf4788 says, young man Josh, how you doing, Leaf? He does some great Nets content over there, so make sure you're tapped in there. How's it going, Leaf? Appreciate you in the chat. If you're in the building, you want to get in on the conversation, by all means, chat is open. We will take a couple quick chatters before we wrap up. Questions, comments, thoughts, anything relating to the Brooklyn Nets. You got it, open floor. Mic is yours right here before we wrap up. Let me finish the thought I had earlier. Not sure if I did. Quick thank you to you all, to the community, especially the guys over on Twitter. So we got 69 of you guys in the building, so make sure you're followed along. If you all followed, that would mean I would be over 900 followers. I'm right there. But again, another big day for me. The live in-person breakdowns have gone really, really well on my Twitter and Instagram too, for that matter. So thank you very much for interacting with it. We've drawn the attention of the Brooklyn Nets themselves. We have drawn attention from Chris Carino, the Nets play-by-play radio broadcaster. So much great stuff is happening from this community, expanding outwards. It starts right here in the inner circle, but it really, really happens with you guys. So I owe you a big thank you for reposting, liking, sharing, interacting with all the content, as we always do. It has been a pleasure to talk Nets basketball with you from June through December, and now we pick it up with January. We begin with the new year, and it is only onward and upward from here. All right, that's all I got. That was one of the craziest basketball games I have ever seen. If you haven't done so yet, go rewatch from the beginning throughout my entire reaction. That was the whole first part of the show. Just my reaction. I had to get it off my tongue. I was waiting all day at school just to be able to talk about this game. So we had to do that in the beginning of the show. Make sure you get there if you haven't done so yet. But otherwise, that's all I got. I am Josh Williver from the lovely borough of Brooklyn, signing off saying, when are the Nets ever going to play a game like that again? Please let me know and sign me up. I would love to watch one like that again. Silver lining, it helps the tank. But Would have felt good to win that one. All right, that's all I got. I'm Josh Williver, host of the Brooklyn Boys Show, signing off saying, have a great night, everybody. Make sure you stay safe out there. And as always, let's go Nets. Good night, everybody.